Are you moving to DC and you realize that you have this choice between living in DC, Maryland, or Virginia? There's definitely a lot to understand about living here and figuring out which one is going to be right for you and or your family if you are coming with one. I'm going to cover the major differences between the two states and the district just so that you can decide what might be right for you. So after we cover everything, I'm going to tell you the best and worst things I think about living here. And then I'm also going to tell you the one major reason why I never left. And it really has nothing to do with my real estate business being entrenched here. So I am Melissa Terzis, DC Real Estate Mama. You might see other videos about DC, but no one's doing them like I do because I like to dive in and go into these neighborhoods and actually show you footage of what it's like living here and what the streets are like and all of that. So this is all real and genuine from my heart, from my mind and all that. So subscribe so you don't miss the new videos. Now, it's been a while since I covered everything in DC, Maryland, and Virginia into one giant video. Trends really changed over the past several years, but things are again changing, so it's important to cover the latest. If you're going to move here, you may not have any idea of where you want to live, and that is really hard for people to try to figure out. There's so many different implications of living in all the different places. The first thing I'm going to tell you that you have to do is tell me, where's your job in the DC metro area? This is the first thing you have to know. Now that all federal workers have been called back into the office, traffic is back and it is worse than it ever was. Now, despite major additions over the past few years to the public transportation system with the Silver Line Metro going to Ashburn, and then we've got the Purple Line that's going through Silver Spring, the roads are all still pretty clogged. There are several employment areas here. Most obvious is going to be downtown DC. So much of the federal government agencies are going to be in DC. Most everything is downtown, but of course not all of it. So you've also got Pentagon and Arlington and multiple military bases, and then you've got the Dulles Tech Corridor. So there's a whole lot of places that people could be commuting to and from. So we need to start first with where you will be commuting and how often you will be commuting there for us to determine the best option. But of course, it's not all about commute. So the next thing that you have to ask yourself is, what kind of lifestyle can you find in DC, Maryland, or Virginia? Well, Metro DC area offers every different type of lifestyle that you could want. If you think of it as operating like, let's just do like on a continuum, all right, where 1 is like the most rural place ever, farmland and all of that. 10 is going to be your concrete jungle, total city living, as city can be. I'm going to tell you that we have every option here from 1 to 10. So what kind of lifestyle you want goes together with your commuting needs. Got to balance those two. So if you're single or a coupled up professional without kids, the city life might actually be for you. I did it. I loved it. I lived in DuPont Circle for 10 amazing years before the husband and kids entered the scene. The night I packed my last box and left my condo to go to our house in Glover Park, I literally felt like I was leaving part of me behind. But Glover Park proved to be a great middle ground for us. We had actually resigned ourselves that we were going to be moving to the suburbs. We just thought at that time, it was 2013, 2014, was like, what do you do when you get priced out of the city and you can't afford the space you want? You move to the suburbs. And we were going to the suburbs to do our house hunting. But ultimately we realized that we're city people and the idea of living in the suburbs wasn't as appealing to us. So we found Glover Park and we love it. Now, if we look at DuPont, it is an 8 on that rural to city continuum. I would say that Glover Park is like a 6. So you've got to figure out, once you come here and you see what that actually looks like, you know, you'll know what the right thing is for you. If you want super rural, moving deeper into Maryland or Northern Virginia is probably what you're going to want to do. We also have a variety of suburbs here. If you want to be able to like legit high five your neighbor from your front porch on their front porch, we have dense suburbs like that as well. Or if you want a house and some breathing room between you and the house next door, you can have that too. And then there are plenty of like planned developments here, or what they call PUD, P-U-D. It's a planned urban development. They're going to have residential, retail, and restaurants. You can live in the same community and walk to the retail areas. If you want that 9 or 10 in city life, then you're going to want to look in neighborhoods in and around downtown DC or in Silver Spring, Maryland. Now, when clients describe to me the kind of lifestyle that they're seeking, I can usually pinpoint 2 to 3 areas for them to start their focus on. And then the best advice that I can share is that it's really, really important to spend at least a couple hours here driving around. Once you see it with your own eyes, it's totally different. You're going to know what's right for you once you're here. And what you describe as city living may not be necessarily my definition of city living. So that's why I think it's really important that you figure out how you're going to spend some time here and, boots on the ground and all of that. And generally, for my people with families, you're going to cover more ground if you leave the kids with grandma and grandpa. It's just unfortunate. I've seen it happen where families are trying to drag multiple kids and kids want to do other things, and then you feel like derailed because you want to do some fun stuff for them and you don't want them to be miserable in this trip, and then you don't want them to have this bad idea of moving here. I get it. If there's any chance at all that you can come for like 1 or 2 days and just leave the kiddos, that's going to be the most effective use of your time. All right, now let's talk about the cost of living in DC, Virginia, and Maryland. Guys, it's not cheap here, all right? You not like really see much of a difference in the close-in areas of Maryland or Virginia when it comes to prices of various consumer goods. But then there's going to be these really wild outliers, like in places like the grocery store or the gas stations. So you have to know your prices, and you have to be careful if you are price sensitive to that stuff. My husband doesn't care what gas station he drives into, but I'll drive a mile down the road for the sake of a penny. And I realize that it's only saving like 15 cents. I don't know why. It's just something in my head. So the real differences will boil down to taxes here. Property taxes in DC are the lowest. Why is that? A lot of people wouldn't think that. Well, easy answer. DC is just one jurisdiction. See how that works? It's just DC. In Maryland or Virginia, you're going to be taxed by the multiple jurisdictions in which the property resides. So if you're in a city, if you're in a town, if you're in a county, those all are potentially going to levy taxes and provide different services that they're taxing you for. So what this means in real numbers, let's talk about that. In DC, you are going to pay 85 cents per mil, or $850 for each $100,000 of assessed value of your property. If it's your primary residence in DC, you're also going to get a homestead deduction, which almost wipes out that first $100,000. They take $90,000 off of your assessed value. So essentially, if your house is valued at $300,000, you're really not paying on that first 100. You're only paying $850 for the second 100 and $850 for the third 100, and there you go. You are paying $1,700 a year in taxes. That number is going to jump over $1 in Maryland and Virginia jurisdictions. What does that mean? Fairfax County is $1.12 per mil, or $1,120 for each $100,000 of assessed value. Compare that back to the DC number, which we saw was $850. Now you're getting an idea of what the differential is when you move to a state versus living in the district. Montgomery County is not as straightforward because Montgomery County has a bunch of cities and towns that levy additional taxes, but you're generally going to expect similar numbers as Virginia, just give or take a little bit, anywhere from, you'll see $1.15 per mil in the cities of Gaithersburg and Tacoma Park to $1.33 if you're in somewhere like Chevy Chase Village. Now, next up, income taxes. They are pretty much flat in Virginia. The counties have no taxing authority over income, so you're really just paying the state taxes. Maryland, not the same. Maryland has income taxes levied at both the state level and the county. So that is going to add basically another 3% in taxes for you. But Maryland has brackets. So depending on your salary, it could be more beneficial to be in Maryland. It just depends. DC's the highest though. You're going to pay several percentage points higher just for one level of government in DC. Make that make sense. I really can't. Also, taxation without representation. We don't have senators. We don't have a voting member of the House of Representatives. We do get to vote for president, but yeah, there you go. One last thing, because I think I might have actually sold this like Virginia was the winner. Virginia has a personal property tax on cars, boats, RVs, planes, and that can add up if you have those things. They use the NADA book value to get essentially an assessed value of whatever your personal property is, and then you're going to see an assessment of anywhere between $4 to $5 per $100 of assessed value of the vehicle. Now, I did promise you that I was going to talk to you about the best things about living in DC because I want to get you excited for it. So let's talk about what I love here and what a lot of people love. We get 4 seasons here, you guys. If you like 100 degrees, you're gonna get it. If you like snow, you're gonna most likely get it. It happens. We've had a few winters where we don't get snow, but like I think we're heading into our 3rd snowstorm this winter, so you know, we do get it. Next up is you've got several airports to choose from when you want to get out of town, if you want to go farther than a drive, which, next up, beaches, 2 to 3 hours away from several amazing beaches in Delaware and Maryland on the coast. We are also 2 to 3 hours from amazing views of the fall leaves and hiking in the Shenandoah. We are 2 to 3 hours from skiing. We are 4 hours to New York City by bus or train, which is incredibly convenient. We have every single ethnic food you could ever want here because yes, we are a melting pot of a zillion different cultures. There are also tons of wineries in Virginia within 1 to 2 hours of the city. How about your tax dollars at work? Do you want to know what they do here? There are so many free museums that you can be a tourist in your own city any day of the week. When I was looking up what's happening in the museums these days just to see what the exhibits are, I was like, can I jet out of work for a day and just go check these things out? It's awesome. It's a lot of fun. All right. It's not all sunshine and rainbows. We got to talk now about the worst things about living in DC. All right. We do have some bad things. I'm going to admit it. The mosquitoes. The mosquitoes are everywhere in the summer. They're everywhere, even into the fall. Sometimes they're even around when it's snowing. It's really crazy, but they've got thick skin. I don't know how they do it. They're evil. They're evil. And then you can spray for mosquitoes, which is great. But of course you have to know that if you spray, you're killing the pollinators. That's like a whole other thing. So you've got to be okay with what you're doing to keep the mosquitoes out of your life. Also, this is a political town. And if that's not your thing, like me, you might find yourself yawning at social events. I was terrible in the dating world. I wasn't good at it at all. Anyway, I wasn't good at it. Thankfully, when my husband tries to talk politics to me, I'm like, what? What? Whatever. Anyway. And then last thing that's terrible. Psst. Born and raised Maryland drivers are awful. Watch yourself. You've been warned. So that's all I have for the worst things list. That's really not too bad considering that I have clients who move to get away from like 18-foot snowstorms all winter, earthquakes, sluggish job markets, or even, yes, I had a client that showed me a picture of alligators crossing her street to try to snatch up the family dog for their next snack. Anyway, every time I have these conversations of where would you live if you could live anywhere, I'm like, oh, this is fun. And then I'm like, I don't have a good answer. You know, there's places I love spending time, but there's really nowhere that checks like so many boxes of the area here. So above all, the main reason I never left DC, the reason that ranks above all other reasons is this. My husband and I have loved raising our girls in the city here. We are surrounded by so much history, so many interesting people, so many different points of view and educational opportunities for them that I'm actually hard pressed to think of a place that would offer an improvement over what we have here in DC. So that's my story. That's what I feel about the city, the 3 jurisdictions. My contact info is coming next. Please let me know if you've got any questions or you're moving here and you want to chat. Next steps, happy to help.